Well, let's discuss this issue a little deeper now. Joining us is Nigel Nelson, political editor of the Sunday Mirror, and Professor John Ryan, Brexit advisor and economist at IFO Munich. Gentlemen, good to have you with us. Nigel, let me start with you. Many companies reporting a shortage of drivers. Is Brexit the main culprit?
Well, as a Remainer who wishes the UK was still in the EU, I'd love to be able to blame Brexit, but I don't think it's quite that simple. What we do know is that as of March this year, there were 16,000 fewer European HGV drivers living and working in Britain. But the pandemic has masked an awful lot of the effects of possible effects of Brexit. So what we don't know is how many of those drivers went home because of Brexit, or they may have disappeared because of the pandemic, because of the restrictions. They wanted to go home and be with their families, and they've not come back. So I think it's.
But Nigel, isn't one of the problems that they can't come back because there are now restrictive travel measures in place? Yes, because of COVID, but also because of Brexit and being able to work in this country.
Yes, I mean, this may be one of the reasons that the paperwork is much more difficult. However, we probably won't see the real Brexit effect until next year, when all the checks that were going to happen to goods coming into the country, they were postponed and then they will be reintroduced. So then we will actually see if there's a Brexit effect. But it's not just lorry drivers. We were short during the summer of East European fruit pickers. We can't get enough turkey pluckers at the moment from Europe for Christmas. So these people, it may not just be Brexit which is causing this, but these, like some of the HGV drivers, may prefer to be home with their families while COVID is raging.
John, what's your view? Nigel has mentioned that, of course, it's not just European truck drivers. There are problems now with people saying that it's going to be difficult to get hold of, for example, turkeys for Christmas or Christmas trees for Christmas. There seems to be a shortage in many areas, and critics of Brexit are saying it's because we've left the EU. What's your view?
Well, I think that this whole issue now is... and this crisis is an opportunity, and the need to be realistic and honest about the consequences of Brexit, because government ministers are still standing up and criticising the EU for the fact that they actually chose to take a hard Brexit, and we're not in the internal market anymore. And there's a lot of denial in the British establishment, media included, and in Westminster, in Whitehall. And there's a battle between remembering and forgetting. And the government is forgetting all the things that were supposed to go well for the United Kingdom when they left the EU. And now people are remembering those things that they've said. And I think that the Brexit and trust are going to be interrelated here in terms of what the government has said. I mean, I can give you figures on the lorry drivers. But, you know, HGV drivers, they rose from 10,000 to 45,000 between 2010 and 2017. These are EU drivers. It fell to 42,000 in early 2020. And from March to June 2020, the number of EU HGV drivers declined by 25,000, only recovering...
So John... Is this something the British government should have foreseen? Because Prime Minister Boris Johnson apparently has been warned for months about those falling numbers of HGV drivers.
Well, yes, but I mean, the government got power but doesn't know how to govern. And we've seen that with Brexit, and we've seen that with the COVID crisis. We've got one of the worst death rates in the world and in Europe. Because we didn't lock down in time, he didn't take medical advice from his advisors. So this is just a long line of missteps by a prime minister who is unable to govern and keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake.
OK, well, let's talk about what the government is is doing. Nigel, the government is currently issuing temporary visas, trying to get more workers back into the country to take care of certainly the shortage of truck drivers. Is the government doing enough?
No, is the short answer. And I agree with John that we have a prime minister who doesn't really know how to govern. No, what they're doing is they're issuing 5,000 visas up until Christmas. So the first thing to say there is how many people want to come here and then be turfed out of the country on Christmas Eve. Also, 5,000 doesn't cover the problem that we're facing, that we are lacking 100,000 drivers. That's the reason for the fuel crisis. That's the reason for empty shelves in the supermarkets. And 5,000 visas is just not going to cut it. Now, in desperation, we're trying to attract people who've left the industry but hold HGV licenses back into it. But again, they've no idea who these people are. So they've sent 1 million letters out, quite at random. Some of them might be 90 years old. And already people like ambulance drivers are getting them. I mean, the whole thing really is chaos. And what should have happened is that they should have planned for this months ago, because we could all see it coming.
John, can I ask what your response is to how the government is dealing with this? And I'm sure I can anticipate what you're going to say. Are we going to have shortages like this in fuel and food and other supplies? Is this going to be a trend for the next few months?
Yes, because they're unable to address these issues. They've been told about them. Anyone who brought this up in the last years was talked back to as perpetuating Project Fear. This is all well-trodden territory for 5, 6, 7 years. We knew that this was going to happen. And there's been benign neglect by the government, and Boris Johnson especially, and a lack of understanding of the consequences of Brexit by the government and its ministers is shocking. And now people in the United Kingdom are going to suffer the consequences, not only in these areas, but also in the care industry, in the hospital industries, medical industry. I think it's going to be a very, very winter of discontent for a lot of people, and they'll have to revise their own judgment of whether Brexit is really a good thing. And a lot of the polling is showing that British public opinion is turning against it quite significantly at the moment.
Really interesting to speak with you both on this issue. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel Nelson and John Ryan.